So, everybody that's out there listening, watching, if you are back, this is officially episode number 2 of In the Kitchen. Tonight we're in the kitchen with Seth Nason, a friend of mine, gaming nerd and all-around awesome dude. And I'm Adam.
And I'm Michael.
And that's Michael.
Yeah.
Seth, we're going to go ahead and get rolling, man. I just want to, before we get moving, though, can I run through your accolades, all the things you have started doing? And so you are the proprietor and owner of Ulysses Games LLC. You're developing your own game, which we will be talking about, called Orders of Resistance.
Yes, sir.
You work on another project called Lostlorn with Mark Reinhagen. I can't wait to hear your input about that. You are a smith. You've been making your own gear, weapons, knives, soon to be father, husband, agriculturally minded. You farm, all around badass. So we're going to get into a lot of that. There's a lot to unpack there. But I'm going to let you get started with where you want with that. I'm interested in things like your game, where the inspiration comes from, what keeps you motivated, what your plans are with it long term. Is there a Kickstarter? How are you doing this? And I will try to shut up long enough to let Michael talk as well.
You have 30 minutes to answer all those questions. Go.
Yeah, understood. So Wars of the Resistance came about actually from conversations with Mark. Believe it or not, we have in Lostlorn. I can't talk a whole lot about Lostlorn, but we have something called Titans in Lostlorn that are essentially giants, right? They're like ancient giants, and that's about as much as I can say about them. But I started thinking about giants, and I started thinking about our own world and mythology, and how giants seem to be a universal element of almost all mythologies over the entire planet, right? All different cultures internationally. And there's some really cool stuff out there mythologically about giants that are just not touched on in other worlds, like Forgotten Realms, things like that. I mean, the ordning is neat, and they've got some cool stuff going on. But it's gone now. I mean, no one thinks about the giant ordnings now in 5e. But there's really cool stuff to work with internationally in the real world with that. And I started brainstorming and thinking, and how can I make this pertinent to our lives now? And got me thinking about socioeconomic issues in the world, and how there's really a very small amount of fiscal giants out there that seem to be affecting the rest of us adversely. And I thought, geez, wouldn't it be awesome to make a game where you could fight back against that? And that's sort of what I'm doing.
The artwork, I have to say, you nail everything that you just described verbally. Seth asked me to do some art for the logo design, and when you see it, everything he just talked about is pretty explicitly evident right there. It's gritty. It's gritty.
That's me as a person. I've always been sort of gritty and dark, and sort of rough around the edges. And Adam knows that. I mean, from previous dealings and art and things that I've requested of him in the past, and I kind of I gave you that direction on the logo, and it is brilliant. I'm magnificent. I'm a huge fan of that.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to do.
We'll put that up. I'll show it here in a little bit once I find it. Seth, I was wondering, so what is this? Are you doing this? Is this orders? Is it for a new system, or is it for one that's already there? Or are you making your own? How's that working?
I'm making my own, actually. So I'm taking elements of a lot of things that I've enjoyed playing. Some storyteller stuff, working with Mark. It's hard not to do that if you work with Mark. You kind of absorb that stuff from him, as passionate as he is about this. some stuff that is vaguely, reminiscent of 5e, some stuff that's reminiscent of 3.5, 3.0, some early stuff. I tried to mess around with THACO a little bit, which is cool because I really enjoy it. I like the math behind stuff, but I know a lot of people don't. So you have to, kind of smooth those edges out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still in progress. The thing that I'm most proud of right now is the magic system, which is just about done. At least up until it only goes to 9th level before it kind of explodes into a world of possibilities. But it's very different from anything that I've played or seen, and I'm wicked stoked.
Now, do you feel comfortable talking about it right now, or is it under wraps till everything's done?
I can talk a little bit. I don't mind talking a little bit about it. I'm very influenced by Norse mythology and culture, and things like Jotnar and what we think of as frost giants exist in OOR, but I used one of the Norse traditional magics as the basis for my magic system. It's called Galder, which is chant magic essentially. And that's sort of what I used as a basis, and I kind of built creatively off of that.
That's awesome. That's legitimate history, right? That was that's awesome. That's very cool.
It's found in the sagas and things like that, which is cool. I mean, there's another part of Norse magic that I tried to build into it, but I realized that I was totally overdoing it, and I needed to stop.
Is there such a thing as overdoing it?
Do you, you had mentioned with Mark, and anybody that knows Mark Reinhagen at all knows him because of the vampire game.
Right.
If nothing else, Mark Reinhagen means vampire. And I wonder if when he was originating those ideas, if he had any notion of the complexity that would come out of that. And so when you do this and you make your own game and you've got this nugget here and all of these options, these different possibilities, do you see a long view of that where there are multiple continents that you get to deal with, where you're doing continent books, or even into the mountain, where maybe you go to the giants' land? Maybe oh my God, dude, what if the humans finally rose up and went into their homeland and kicked their asses, So you have an audience like us. There's a whole lot, yeah. But is that also there, or are you in the space right now of just trying to get this done mechanically? What are my rules? The lore can come later. How do you work that out?
So what I've done so far is I have outlined the lore. So I built it like I was writing a novel, right? So I start with an outline of everything I want to touch on in the entire game, and then with that outline, I start tackling things. I start kind of carving away at it little by little, right? So I have chapter 1 done, finished. It's 26 pages long, with basically an introduction to the whole world, everything that's happening, and dumps you in, right? Through that, there's probably 3 or 4 more chapters planned that are lore-based, and I have a few writers, actually, that I've started talking with that are going to start helping me write those things.
Oh, nice.
While I work more on the mechanics portion. And I think that I have outlined what I'm looking for well enough that I can kind of let them go. There are also people that I've worked with, that we've worked with in Lostlorn, actually, that know how I run a team and how what I'm looking for. So it's been very beneficial in that respect. But I'm going to try to focus on mechanics because it's the thing that I am least comfortable with. I am a lore guy. I'm a writer. So the mechanics are the thing that I want to do so that I know that I've done it right. Does that make sense?
Yes. 100%.
It makes 100% sense. Yeah. What is the one quote you always like to say? if it doesn't hurt, it's not worth doing.
I believe I've said that to you. Yes.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about drinking when I was younger. If it doesn't hurt, I should drink something else. As far as like working with Mark goes and the complexities of the world building, I definitely see a lot of possibilities that I am sort of shelving, right? That I'm just kind of, because I know how it can be if you get super ramped up into exploring and creating without finishing the task.
Mhm.
So what I'm trying to do is take the task in front of me, work on it as much as humanly possible, and shelve the stuff that I see coming in the future until said task is done. Make sense?
I got you.
So that makes me wonder, like, so you're working on Lostlorn. You've got a lot of other things that you're doing as well. Do you have a time frame, or do you have an end goal for what you're thinking for with the Orders game?
Yeah, I would like to see a rough draft, a first draft of the entire game, book, whatever you want to call it. I would like to see that done by the end of the year this year. I want to have it written, and I'm also so Adam is working with me on art stuff, and I'm periodically handing Adam my arts needs list for him to kind of peruse and see and say, well, that whatever. And as we go, I hand off that to him so that can be worked on separately, and I don't have to think about it because I trust Adam implicitly, and then I just move on to the next thing. If that makes any sense. So I'm hoping to have the writing done by the end of the year and a lot of the art done, and then I'll send the writing off to Ellis, which is going to be brutal because she is a brutal editor. And nice. I'll let her.
This is the Ellis that we both know. Yes.
Yes, this is the Ellis we both know.
It'll be painful.
It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt real bad. Yeah. But it's gonna be good, and that's what we're looking for. So I plan on doing all the layout myself too, which is also brutal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of an infant in design because I did mostly newspaper layout within design at a younger age, but I picked it up in the last year or so. So I'm hoping that I can do something cool with it.
You had mentioned just now that being an infant at it. So Michael does all of our right up front. Michael does everything else that is not writing or art. Everything else Michael does. And one of the things that we have been very lucky with is that Michael does the layout really well. And working with Lostlorn, I have learned through experience that layout tends to be one of those areas that gets nightmarish almost immediately. I know nothing about it. You're an infant. Michael, at least in middle school, what's that like? Like, as an infant, how's that feel? Because I'm completely dumbfounded by it.
So, I think it's. Have you ever heard the term "all things are possible in the eyes of the beginner"?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Ever heard that phrase? So that's how I look at InDesign, or how I look at graphic design in general. I don't know what I can't do, so I just keep doing it until I can't do it, right? And I found that it's painful. It's a learning process, but when I do succeed in doing something really cool, I look at it and go, oh, "Holy shit, I did that! That's cool,"
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's hard. It's in order to have things done as diversely as I want them to be, I will probably have to have somebody help me. But if I wanted to do a form, create a border and have my page on there and have 6 or 7 different variations of that page, I could do it. I could absolutely do it. And that may be what I do. But that will change as the company grows. If we're successful, when we're successful, it's going to need an actual professional.
how do you manage the immediate, seething, fast rage that occurs? Because I can't send links effectively. Apparently, I couldn't get you the link to Discord. So, like, it's no exaggeration. That scene in the Avengers where Banner says he's always angry, dude. I'm at the edge of violence constantly when it comes to tech.
Yeah.
Are you just chill?
Really, really helpful being able to superheat metal and beat the piss out of it. Definitely.
So I've been asking a lot of questions, and I am aware of the time. I've got 10 more neat things to ask you, but Michael, do you want to take? Is there anything you would like to ask before I ask the next thing I'm dying to know? Because I got a question, Seth.
No, go ahead. I want to hear what you. But yeah, InDesign. If you ever want any help with that, I have vast experience with that. I've been in marketing for 20 plus years using InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop. So if you need any assistance with that, with the color coding and all that kind of stuff, I'm happy to help you out. Or just feel free to ask anytime. Yeah,
we'll talk.
He's aces with it. No kidding. Now, something he's not as deeply versed in, and it's not dirty laundry, but it's interesting underwear, if nothing else. So most people that are in the gaming network, like role players and game builders and designers, we've been playing for years, and we've been noodling it out for years. I won't say...
That's for you, Adam.
Yeah, it starts when... he very very limited experience rolling dice officially, and was able to create, honest to goodness, something that, in my opinion, is just outstanding. And so, looking at your work and the concepts and the ideas, are you a dice roller from way back, or are you kind of new to it as well?
So I have been playing role-playing games for 4 or 5 years, I think. I've been running games for a little less than that, maybe 3 years, and like with my creative mindset and my writing in general. As soon as I started running games, I had to start creating stuff for them. So, which I think most of us who have run games, that kind of is what happens. You just start writing stuff. But I'm not, like, I haven't been playing since high school or since I was a kid, like a lot of people.
Take it, Adam.
Not for nothing. I was a jock in high school. So, like, I didn't start using my brain until I broke my collarbone senior year and couldn't play football anymore. So, like, I mean, it took that. But I would have, if I hadn't been so involved in sports and, frankly, girls, I probably would have played more D&D.
Well, the two aren't mutually exclusive, by the way.
Yeah, they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. I mean, you can be into D&D and girls at the same time, or guys, or whatever.
Not if you're Adam Crap. It took a long time for those two bits of the Venn diagram to overlap.
Yeah, they don't overlap for me now. My wife thinks I'm nuts. She thinks I'm a huge nerd.
Okay.
I did want to throw out real quick, if anybody in the audience has any questions for Seth, feel free to chime in anytime. There should be a button that you can click that'll let you ask questions as well. We're totally open to that anytime anybody wants to chime in. So,
is there a place where I would see that? Is that up there in the corner there?
No, they will actually get to be on the...
have access.
JQuest has a question. Do you want to raise your hand, or do you want us to ask him based on your chat? He doesn't want to be on camera. He says he has a wonky question, but does your system have crafting since your background of blacksmithing?
So it will. I I haven't written it yet, but it will. And it's going to be interesting because it's an Iron Age world. So it's going to be hard. I think they've been under the thumb of the Giants for a couple 300 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So they will have probably lost a lot of their capabilities. But I think that it's still going to be like they'll have iron. They'll have probably access to bronze or something like that. But like they're really cool. Like, you know, they'll still be remembering like the weapons of their fathers and their fathers' fathers and so on and so forth. Which what's cool is there's a lot of tombs of dead kings and, you know, things like that that are still out there that are sort of like yet to be explored or as part of, you know, the exploration process. So, you know, that there will be weapons and armor and things like that in the world that exist that will be just way better than you'll be able to make. But you'll be able to make stuff. Yeah, I still have to figure it out.
Well, that leads me to another question then. Let me make sure no one else. All right, yeah. So, is there an end goal within the game itself, or do you plan to just keep releasing like modules and things like that as that goes, or will it progress, or how does that? Do you have a vision for that, or is it sort of this is the setting and these are the things that are happening in this setting that keep happening, and you've got all this world to play in?
Yeah, so the goal of the setting, the goal of the world is for the humans to beat back the Giants and win their freedom, right? It's about kind of you know, being free again, right? It's our world. It's looking at our world as, you know, the peasants that we all are, right? And trying to beat back the billionaires and, you know, be free. So I think the end goal is for all the Giants, maybe for all the Giants to be dead. I don't know, but certainly for them to have their freedom, their liberty. But there might be other places to take the story, even if Misla, the name of the world, even if Misla is freed, there might be other places with Giants.
Yeah, very cool. That being said, we are at 6:30, which is what we said we would go to. But if you're happy to sit around and chat some more, we'd love to have you longer.
Yeah,
but
I'm good.
If not, we. All right, sweet. Adam, you got time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, carry on. If you want to read the next question down there, Michael, I think there's one.
Yes.
Popped up.
Kid Tango 717 says, with the world and everything consumed around it, will weather seasons play a big role considering climate was important?
Totally.
It's a good question.
Yeah, there are multiple climates that I've designed so far in the world. We're dealing with internationally the cultures that I pulled these giants from, the different tribes of giants. We have some that are like there's the Majitu, and the Majitu are they're a Saharan African legend, right? They're very plains oriented, you know, a little bit, you know, desert. So there's definitely a desert. There's also, I talked about, you know, the Norse aspect. So there's a mountainous cold region. I've got swamps. I've got and we will be messing around with weather and climate patterns and weather patterns because there's a lot of mountains, and I have them sort of specifically designed so that, you know, there can be a wayward and a windward side of those mountains, and certain things can happen on different sides of them. So yeah, I mean, like, my knowledge of meteorology is rudimentary at best, but I will be messing around with it for sure. Yeah.
Sweet.
That's very cool.
I've got a question that's not necessarily off topic, but less about mechanics. I was wondering, if your experience with Lostlorn and Kerosene, like, are there things that you've learned that you want to do or slash avoid after having worked with those folks and those kinds of games, um, and presentation wise and all that kind of stuff, mechanics, and I was just wondering how that sort of informed, if it has at all, your approach for this one, orders.
Definitely. I mean, we are the sum of our own parts, right?
Right.
I definitely my work. I would say most poignantly, my work with Mark is Mark and I have been pretty close, and we've worked very closely on a lot of stuff for Lostlorn. I'm the lore master as well as part of the board of directors with Adam, and there's been a lot of. We have no shortage of ideas, right?
Right. Yes.
And sometimes it can be harder to focus on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mark's goal is to build something that is just brilliant and perfect for the time, and he's doing that, and it's working, right? But me, I'm not trying to. I guess it's a difference between and Adam as someone who knows an awful lot more about art and art history than I do. I'm sure you could probably tell me what the actual movements were, but some people made art for people, some people made art for themselves. Same thing with writers and poetry. We all write for different reasons. And I'm making this game for me. And other people will certainly enjoy it, and I think it's going to be awesome. But I have an idea, and I have a very specific idea that I want to do, and I'm not changing it for friggin' nothing, man.
Uh-huh.
Like that's that's kind of. I mean, I'm trying to be as careful about the way that I do things as
right.
possible, so I don't piss anybody off, because it's real easy to piss people off. But I definitely I know what I'm going for, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm not planning on changing it to make other people happy.
So do you think that's based more on storytelling and lore, or the mechanic side of it? Because you talked a lot earlier about the mechanics and how you really, which is one of the approaches that I was taking, which is why I was curious about that, because it was something that I felt, when I was thinking about it, it's like, well, I feel like I could do this better. This sounds like fun to me. And, that I want to be able to play with my kids and things like that, especially when they get older, but also at a young age. And I was just wondering, did the inspiration, was it even split with lore and storytelling and mechanics, or was it more one or the other there? Does that make sense? Yeah.
I guess mechanics, I get irritated sometimes with the way that games are run a lot, and I it irritates me when game masters take a game and have a storyline that they run with, and they're just going to do it. And it doesn't matter what you want to play. I don't care.
Yeah.
That bug, right?
Yeah.
It should.
Yeah, it's annoying. I mean, it's stop. You're ruining the games for people. Stop doing that. But part of I'm building a game with a set goal, right, in mind. And when you start playing the game, you're sort of automatically railroaded in that direction, because you're not free. But it's sort of the macro vision. The micro vision is yours to do whatever you want with.
Right.
The idea is to be role playing a person that is in the world who is being
right.
Right. And you probably would be pissed about that.
Yeah, things are being put upon them, and they need to deal with it.
Right, and really, 75% of humanity is enslaved. Yeah. So, if you're not, then you probably are pissed about the people who are.
Yeah.
But mechanically, I don't want it to be easy for people to be railroaded. I want people to have options, and I want people to be able to do as much as they can and be as free as possible in playing the game, and to be as creative as possible in playing the game. Which is like the magic system, which is, again, I come back to it, but it's so cool because it's you can combine different things as you learn different things, and you can tweak spells or chants, right, to do different things and have different outcomes
Right.
in probably ways that I can't even imagine. But I feel
Right.
specifically so that you will mess up your DM or your DM or whatever. You're gonna screw them up just by changing your spells, and it's gonna be cool as hell. And it's gonna make GMs have to be more flexible. And
Yes, dude, I love it. That sounds great. That's one of the mechanics that we put in BattleSauce was to mix it up so that we call him the Sauce Boss. Thanks to Jared here, who's also in the audience. He came up with that.
Jared did?
Jared, yeah, that's Jared.
That's sexy, brother. That's 10 XP any game. Your choice.
Well, we call them calories, but yeah. So we put things in there too to make it so that the Sauce Boss doesn't have complete control over the game, because we're encouraging and we want the players to go off script, as it were, no matter what we've written, and we've tried to create a format that not only encourages that but gives it a way to make that happen. We did have another question in here from Kid Tango. With the world and everything consumed around it. Oh, no. I'm sorry. This was from Jake West. We already did that one. Do your giants have red hair? Because I've heard some stories from First Nations people about giants having red hair.
So, I haven't. I specifically limited the giants to 9 different myths, and I did that because I wanted to incorporate as much of the world as I could. And I really did not mess too much with First Nation or Native peoples in North America or South America. A little bit. I have I threw in Wendigos and I threw in Sasquatch and things like that as minor players in it. And part of it because it's mythology that I don't know that much about, and there isn't that much out there for me to mess with. There's some stuff, right? But it's one of those things where if I screw it up, the detriment of screwing it up is so much worse than the benefit of getting it right. Right? So it's one of those things where and I use the Juma, which is or Yuma, which is a Brazilian sort of like a Brazilian Sasquatch essentially. So I've got that mixed in there, but again, I didn't mess with it that much because I don't want to. I don't want to have to change stuff because I pissed somebody off.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd
rather. I guess there's some spots where I played it safe with that stuff, but there's also I use Nephilim and I use I used Jinn as a race, and I have luckily I have a Turkish friend who was able to look at that and say. I also have. I actually have another friend who's a rabbinical scholar who was able to look at my use of Nephilim, and between the two of them, we're able to say, I don't think you're going to piss anyone off with this, but you'll probably be all right. But if they do, just tell them, hey, look at this and think about this. So I've tried to be as sensitive as I can, but I'm only going to be so sensitive, man.
Right. Well, and it's all loosely based on the stuff, right? It's not like you're retelling history. You're using it as a base for your stories.
It's a made-up world.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, this is all make believe.
Right.
Well, with that in mind, then, do you have other things in the world that exist prior to the giants coming back? I don't know, dragons, unicorns, trolls. Goblins, do you have that kind of thing going on as well?
I do. So there's stuff that exists in Misa that I've tried to tweak from a lot of different myths, and not just with the giants, but also using. So my races are different, right? I don't have elves. I don't have orcs. I don't have these things, right? I'm using Chi, which is S-I-D-H-E is how you spell it, Chi, which is the Celtic, basically race of fairies, right? And then I'm using gin, right? Like I said, I use gin as a rate. I'm using, you're gonna make me get my stuff out of here. I use human, right? Because that's kind of like you have to have a base to build from, right? You have to have something that people can look at and say, oh yeah, I identify with that.
Right. Yeah.
So I've used, as far as the races go, I've used here we go. So there's a thing called Giantillion, which is neat. Giantillion, and this goes back to Forgotten Realms from like a million years ago, in the days of like when people cared about the ordering, and when like what are those stupid, really smart, like they're really smart giants, but they're smaller. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah.
But like that stuff, that like so Giantillion are like a crossbreed of giants and another race, but it's like there are different combinations that create different Giantillions. I was able to use that as the system to include other myths that that exist in our world. And then so that the races, they have what's called the Holder, which is again another Norse myth. The Holder is sort of like their fairies, right? Or like Norse. I think it's actually elves. They're dark elves. It's the other name for Norse.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yep. Aziza and Aziza are fairies from Africa, which may or may not coincide with visitations from Europeans, because Aziza fairies are supposedly light-skinned in African myth, at least from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I've used Ishta, which is just half of the concept of Ishta Deva, right? Like I just use that word to build a race that's based off Hindu mythology and culture. So multiple armed, sort of like the Devas, like Ali, or like Shiva, things like that. So like now you have a playable race that has 4 arms. Like
that's cool.
Do that.
That's pretty sweet.
That's cool.
And also will be super hard for game masters to suck it. And I also have like planned expansion stuff with myths that I wasn't able to include now. For instance, the Jinn, right? I talked about how I use Jinn and I've used Nephilim. The Jinn were subjugated by the Nephilim on their homeworld, and I realized that would be a problem as I was even writing it. I realized how cool of an idea it is, but I also realized how terrible an idea it is to take a Jewish-based giant myth and have them subjugate an Arab-based myth, and how many friggin' problems that would create. So I came to the conclusion that, and with the help of my rabbinical scholar friend and my Turkish friend, that the way to do that is to include a race of people that exist on that Jinn homeworld that were also subjugated by the Nephilim, that are based off of Jewish myth, and to have it be that the Jinn are actually like they feel lost without their neighbors. They feel totally like that they didn't realize how much they loved and needed their neighboring culture until they can't find them and they don't know where they are, if they're dead or not, right? They're wiped out completely, they have no idea. So that exists, and that might be something to expand on later.
That's really interesting. There's just because of the nature of the market and the people that tend to be in the demographics that buy the various contents, there's an inherent bias toward certain concepts, right? And the idea of you taking these ideas and actually doing cultural research and the awareness of those things, I think, is a big deal. And I think that really and truly is kind of where gaming is going to have to move to stay. I mean, to stay relevant and to stay global. Like Lostlorn works with individuals from how many different countries? 7 or 8 countries. And for if you want your product to be internationally accessible, then you need to be aware of the markets, and the individuals and the cultures. That's really awesome, dude. That's fairly avant-garde.
If you can plan ahead to try and include as many people as possible to represent them in your storytelling, then you increase your market. You automatically increase your market to be able to sell to more people, and you give more people an opportunity to have like a little black girl with the Little Mermaid moment where they can look at her and say, "Hey, that's me." I don't care, man. I really I don't care who you are. If you can't look at those commercials of little black girls who are finally seeing representation for themselves on television and not feel something about that, go to hell. I don't care. You're not my friend.
I don't disagree in the least, man.
I want people to enjoy things. I want people to I want them to have fun. I want them to experience it and build cool shit.
Yeah.
Yes,
indeed we do. I mean, that's kind of the thing about the whole idea about building a game, I think, is really involving the community. And if you try to lock somebody out of that, then you're missing the whole point of role playing or playing, any type of game in that that sense. So, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not gatekeeping anybody.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I got too much to do.
Yeah.
Right? I'm too busy being an asshole.
We've got another question from Jared. Adam, do you want to take that one in case I'm echoing more than I should be?
Actually, I think I'm echoing too, but it says, question. How is character creation? Is the 6 stats or something else?
It's different. It's definitely different. I've got, so, let me bring it up.
And remind me, I got one more question after this I'd really like to get an answer to before we part ways tonight.
Yeah. So I've taken different I've used different things in place of the stats that you'd be familiar with 5e. And they're sort of, you're rolling for stats, but you're also assigning points for skills like you would in Storyteller. And strength is basically non-existent, right? Because we're talking about a world where the big bad evil guy is a friggin' giant who's 45 feet tall. You're not going to outstrength him. I don't care if you're a friggin' barbarian or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're not going to outstrength this big bad dude. It doesn't matter. You can push. So I thought about that and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a game with no strength involved, where it's all skill and luck and things like that. So there's a skill of feats of strength, right? So if you need to make a strength roll or you want to lean on that as a crutch as a game master, you can. It's there, but it's not an attribute. It's not something that you roll for. It's something you can put points in. But really, main ones are, I think I have, in place of strength, I have grit. And then, so grit, talent, starch, acumen, understanding, and influence. So they're sort of what you'd find in 5e, but they're also especially starch and grit, it's different, right? Grit is how much do you want it? How bad do you want this? Are you gonna lay down and die? Or are you going to get up and fight? That's the real strength. That's the real strength in life anyways. I don't care how much you can lift. How much, how big are your balls, man? How can you dig?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's about.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed. I hadn't thought of starch yet. That's a pretty good one with all the stuff that BattleSauce has that's food related. I'm like, starch? Come on. How did I miss that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our entire vocabulary
Yeah.
is based around the kitchen. You know, how we miss starch, dude? What the
Yeah.
hell?
I mean, my vocabulary is built around the kitchen too, man. I spent 15 years working in kitchens, and frankly, you know, it's just built in. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, when you said "herd!" exclamation point, I was like, "Oh man, he has worked in a kitchen."
Yeah. Yeah, man. Scallops and clams, and just clap your hands. Just clap your hands.
So, is your game? Is there a time?
Is it fun? Is your game fun, Seth?
Of course, it's fun. Is there a time in the foreseeable near future that you would, maybe we could all get together here or somewhere and actually play like a one night or a shot or something like that?
Okay. I'd say once I have the character creation completely finished, it's almost I have to get the descriptions of the. So instead of class, we have orders, right? That's the orders of resistance, right? So once I get those completed and fleshed out, and the progression, like the level progression finished, because that's the stuff that's very different. That's the stuff that's like it looks more like taking degrees in masonry than it does like building levels in in a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you're taking degrees.
Love it.
BattleSauce understands 1,000%.
Yeah.
We have adopted a very similar pathway. So yeah, that's awesome. Right on. Outside the box, man.
Brian, that's the whole thing, right? Like, the other part of building this game is that I got so furiously pissed off at Wizards of the Coast that I can't play D&D anymore, man. I cannot do it. It pisses me off too much. So
yes.
I will not play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not going to do it. And like every time, like I'm scrolling through my phone and something pops up, or hey, watch the D&D movie. How about you get Bet? How about that? Like,
how about that?
I have to make my own game now. Like it pissed me off so much that I have to do it better, or at least different, right? It's about diversity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. 100%.
So yeah, as you can tell, I get a little heated about shit.
Oh, dude, I love it. Adam has to calm me down sometimes when I go on about various other games that I'm like, this is why BattleSauce is the thing and whatever. But no, I love to hear the passion. Very nice. Well, and it really speaks to you as a creator and really being able and wanting to put all of your efforts and time, because free time, as you are well aware, is super short. And when you work this hard and that long on trying to put these things together in hopes that other people are going to enjoy it to the same extent that you do, it's tasking at best.
Yeah. Big time.
So we're closing in on 7. Is there anyone that has questions at this point? Seth, do you want to keep going? Are you done? Adam?
I'm looking at my. Eventually, I got to put my animals away, but it's still.
I was actually going to say, I think an hour, and we're getting used to this new format. We've never done this, but I think an hour is behind the scenes extra half hour. That's awesome. Otherwise, we're monopolizing your evening, and I know there's other things that you ought to be doing. So, anybody in the audience with a question before we sign off here with Seth?
And actually, also, Seth, while that's happening, while people are gathering their thoughts, if you have anything you want to say about where we can find you online or any of those kind of places, go ahead, give us a shout out now.
We're going to share links.
We are going to share links, but if they're listening to this via audio, I'd like to give that opportunity too.
Yeah, so I have a Discord for Ulysses Games. which they'll have the link for. It's probably easier to do it that way than me trying to spell out a link.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I've also created a Twitter, which I barely created it, so there's nothing going on there. But eventually, I will put stuff out like that. I'm trying to focus on creating and not focus on marketing until I have something created.
Yeah.
Because there's like nothing more
that
annoying
another hour's conversation.
Throw nothing at you. Like, here, I'm doing this cool thing, but it's not done yet. So wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. We feel that, dude.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Ah, shoot! I had a question I was going to ask you about. Oh, yeah. I guess the other thing I was going to ask you was if you would be willing to come back and chat with us at some point. I don't know why I had to look at my notes for that, but as this progresses, I'd love to get you back on here and talk more about how you're progressing through it and what your sort of future plans are with releasing it, whether through Kickstarter or funding, or how that's going to work, and if you're going to put it out in bits and pieces and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think I probably will eventually do a Kickstarter. But like the majority of the funding that I need in order to be able to actually write it and have it ready to go to a Kickstarter is coming from me. And I am paying my writers. I am paying my artists. I'm not like we're not doing the volunteer thing here until things are good. Like I'm paying less than the industry standard because I'm not rich, but the idea is to pay what I can, and then after the Kickstarter, pay more.
Great.
So that's the plan. And I'm also because of that, trying to do the majority of the stuff myself. Anything I can do, I'm doing myself.
Yeah.
Which it's a double-edged sword. It's important to do whatever you can, but it's also important to not kill yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There were some concessions we had to make when creating BattleSauce, but yeah, I totally feel you there.
I did a panel at Ice and Dice about creating content and about how to build a world and how to write a book and things like that. And my biggest thing was do it. If you want to write, you have to do it. You go and do it. Why are you still here? Get out of the room and go do it.
Yeah, you just got to jump in and do it. Otherwise, it's never going to happen.
100%.
All right,
guys.
If
with
no
that
other
in mind,
questions,
as we said, we'll be posting links. There will be information. We will have updates and all that good stuff. But this has been In the Kitchen with Seth Nason. Seth, have an awesome evening. Best to your lovely wife. Tell her I said hi.
I will.
Also,
that's awesome. Otherwise, guys, leave an eye out on Discord, and we'll keep links up, and we'll make sure everything's rolling as it should. It was a hoot, man. It was a hoot.
Talk to you soon.
All right, see you guys.
Peace. Oh, hey. Also, don't forget, it's all in the sauce.